My hair is doing something funny with this damn headphone. Anyway, whatever. Let's go.
Welcome to another Compass Box Music Podcast. Over here, we have a very, very special guest, Mr. Jahangir, or more affectionately known as JJ.
JJ, thank you.
JJ has been instrumental in pretty much every instrument that I can think of. I mean, not only is he a great drummer, but he's also studio owner / producer / many things. I mean,
Yeah, I play bass also.
You play bass
I play
also?
a lot of bass. I play a lot of bass actually.
How did I not know that?
Well, now you do. I mean, so basically for college festivals, I used to play bass, and Joshua Vaz, I don't know if you ever heard of him.
Yeah.
Played drums because there are no bass players in
Well,
college.
there still aren't too many bass players.
Too many bass players. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I know. Tell me about it.
So then how did you switch to the drums then?
I mean, no. I started off as a drummer. Always played drums, like was my principal instrument. But I always enjoyed playing bass, and yeah, duty called.
So in addition to,
was
of
it.
course, all the instruments that JJ plays, he is also the man behind Island City Studios, along with many other people. But I mean, he's the main man. So let's actually start off just talking about a little bit about Island City and how did it go from Cotton Press to Island City? What did you take? What did you not take? And why sort of have that move in the first place?
I took everything, including the doors from Cotton Press, because building a studio is expensive. And yeah, the door frame, everything about Island City, about Cotton Press was taken. No, but the ideology of Cotton Press about like having a big enough room to be able to track all the musicians. I mean, to be able to track a band live, or to be able to just track instruments in a good room was very important. It had to be a little bit of a upgrade from, say, from Cotton Press. So
Right.
I guess definitely an upgrade in terms of the control room, because like at Cotton Press we had it was still 32 channels. You could take that kind of channel count, but it was basically outboard preamps and a couple of choice outboard pieces of equipment. But apart from that, and I mean, not a massive room where you could probably squeeze like 3-4 people in there with the engineer. For like half the time of Cotton Press, the control room was in the live room itself, kind of like a church studios or something like that. And then we got a small room next door, 200 square feet, after soundproofing and making a small booth within that. You can imagine how much space we had left. So the ideology, though, had to be the same. It had to be about the music, basically. And though obviously moving to a facility which was catering more and more also to commercial people, just so that it survived, there had to be some kind of services, and Cotton Press didn't have a lobby reception area. Cotton Press was like step out of the door and you're outside where you're smoking, and like you eat food outside there on the ledge. We had one Neel Kamal chair and you did that. No like place for like clients to like sit and wait before their session or anything like that. So it definitely more client and more commercial friendly, and and that was it. But ideology wise, vibe wise, it had to be the same. Had to be. That's why big live room was important.
Speaking of the vibe, I mean, your wife has also been responsible in helping create that sort of space, right? Although she didn't completely understand the whole sense of the vibe initially, right?
Nope, she didn't.
So how would you
we've
categorize?
spoken
How
about
would
this
you
before.
create a metric for the vibe? Like how is it measurable? Like
I mean, it's impossible to measure it. You just gotta the advantage for like someone like you also, and for someone like me, is that we are musicians. So you can't quantify it. So you can't expect somebody who doesn't really live in that realm of things. Like you can't expect them to sort of understand it, because there is no metric with which you measure it. You just know whether it's there or not, and you know the elements that are required to achieve it.
Right, right, right.
And then you just go for it. So yeah, so Rupa, when we were setting up the studio, there were a few extra expenses to ensure that there was the right vibe, and she was very keen on making sure that I kept it tight in terms, because I mean, building a studio ain't cheap.
It's expensive, yeah.
And it's very easy, especially as like people like us who are kind of like gearheads, to get carried away. And so it was very important for her to keep a check on me from that perspective. And I kept insisting, but this will make the
We need
vibe
that
happen.
particular thing, and we need that light. And
Exactly. That light,
yeah,
that piece of equipment, that sofa right there, or what, whatever, So like, need like wood floor at this point, whatever, like just to get the vibe of the place. And I kept using that word vibe, and she kept like saying like, who the hell is going to give you money to set up something
for a
on the
vibe.
basis for a vibe? I mean, and it. I mean, you gotta have the right, like, we've used this word so many times now, but vibe,
Yeah,
to make sure that creativity is like kind of given its space to grow. I mean, nobody wants to like be creative in a hole or in
you're
like
absolutely
a,
right. You're
you
absolutely
can't
right. I
do it.
mean, one of the very fortunate things in doing all the live sessions that we've done with all these artists is that the
Yeah.
one thing that they always said was that, we walked into the space and we felt comfortable.
Yeah,
And,
exactly.
not having a sterile live room
Exactly.
is such an important
Exactly.
part of the whole experience of playing in that live room.
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
I felt that when I was there in Island City also, we had our Made in India with Heatsink
Correct.
at Island
Correct.
City, and I remember walking in, and I remember being that geek and just drooling over all the outboard gear, that API 1608 that you have over there, like
Yeah.
that
Which was
that
on.
centerpiece of the console is just so like demanding. Like you walk
Yeah.
in and you see that API console, and you're like, oh fuck, this is gonna be a good session, you know. So like, how
It's
did
nice.
you?
It's
But you didn't always have that console there, right?
The desk was, I mean, again, I've said this before, the desk is not like, it's not like the studio wouldn't have been
Without
what
it,
it
yeah.
is without it, but did- it makes a huge difference when I put like a whole drum kit through the desk. I do know that. I've noticed that. Like, it makes a huge difference when you just like, like notch up a frequency or something like that on the EQ, and it's just so quick and easy to do on the desk because it's in the path, it's there on the channel while tracking it. Obviously, you need to know what you're ending up with, so depends. Like, not all recordings will or
We'll
not
go
all
through the desk,
engineers will
yeah.
want it or will go through the desk also. But most almost everyone has. But the point is that the ideology of having the desk was a, to get like to track everything really well.
Yeah.
But if you track it well, if you get the source going correctly from the very beginning, then I guess that much work is less post, and the flexibility of being able to open up a mix session and have everything exactly the same is a necessity nowadays. So
Right, right.
unless then I went for a console which you could get like 128 channels, and also with our workflows nowadays, even for a simple song we end up going to like 60, 70 tracks like sometimes,
Right.
so but the 1608 really worked because it was a good desk, it was affordable, it had the right amount of things that I required, and the right amount of flexibility also. Like for 16 channels, it's got 8 auxes, it's got 4 stereo returns, eight mono groups, subgroups. So I could essentially, if I really wanted to run some 32 tracks through the desk, if I wanted to just sum my mix on and get a 2 bus sprint
Right.
through that.
Right. Right. Right.
So it's pretty flexible. The desk was the centerpiece of that room from day one, even before that room existed, even before I bought the desk in Feb. It was, the thing is, when you plan a room like that, you got to know to some extent what the biggest pieces of things that you want from the
That's
very
right.
beginning. The room was designed with the monitoring in mind by Sound Wizard, and I think they really killed it.
Yeah.
So I wanted it to be flexible enough for like you to walk in there as an
And start
engineer
working in.
and
Yeah.
feel at home. Not only musicians, it's not only about it is about the artist, of course, but the
Yeah.
engineer is also the artist to some extent. And in the control room, that's their recording space.
Yeah. No, and the space clearly facilitates like, you know, people to explore their creative boundaries also, right?
Correct. Correct.
From a mixing perspective, to be able to
Mixing
sit on that
perspective.
desk and stuff, you would be like, oh my god, I can do now so much more because the room sounds
Yeah.
great. I've got some of the
Yeah.
best like EQs and compressors out there that I can use to color my sound. So, and I remember like in that control room specifically, like it was cozy without being too intimidating either.
That is very important. So it's not as like slick and all as you might imagine, because then the coziness goes away,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah.
Then you're like, okay, fine. Oof, where am I? Pull my tie up or something like that. But so it had to be a little bit cozy and a little bit messy, not by design. It happens,
Yeah,
but for the most, you felt it.
yeah.
That's all I'm gonna say.
So speaking of gear, mic that you can't live without, one piece of outboard gear that
Uh,
you can't live without, and and maybe one of your instruments that you can't live without too.
Okay, wait. Let's start backwards. Instrument that I can't live without would be my drums,
Fair enough. And
no doubt.
that's a
Pearl reference, Pearl
Pearl reference,
reference,
right? Yeah.
Pearl reference series. I mean, I've had it since 2008 now. It's my personal drum kit.
Oh, okay. I see.
Every single album, or anything that I've really recorded on has been this drum kit. Like it's come with me wherever I've gone. So yeah, so that's one instrument.
That's
Then
instrument, yeah.
what was the other
Outboard
thing?
gear.
Yeah, now outboard gear, distressor, hands down.
That compressor is just like,
Yeah, it's just the thing about it is it's so versatile. Where in moments when you need to move quick, you know that you won't have to repatch it to get a different sound, because you can just like switch the ratio, switch. I mean, there's just so many things you can do with it and get what you want for different instruments. So definitely the distressor is my outboard. Next, mic. Oh,
mic.
this is tough.
Yeah.
There's two ways of looking at it. I would say the Coles 4038 for me.
I mean, a good
But
ribbon mic is always going to be like
exactly.
on your list of like,
List.
yeah.
Yeah. And for me, it's not. I mean, you wouldn't probably call it like the most versatile mic, like
Right.
a 57 or like a U87 or something like that. If I'm doing a drum session, I would use it. If I'm doing a horn session, I would use it. If I'm doing even we've done use it for vocal sessions also. Like I remember for Mali's Mango Shah's, I think it was
Oh,
one of the two vocal mics on
very
her, if
cool.
I'm not mistaken.
Right,
Maybe
right,
I'm
right.
maybe I'm mistaken. It's been a while.
For overhead specifically, do you end up using the coals or do you end up using like
Yes,
large diaphragms or
Coles.
small diaphragms? Coals.
It depends. Like, okay, now again, this is what like a lot of engineers have done like over the years. Like, it's the closest and the easiest mic to get to. Sometimes is the perfect for the job. For if you want like a slightly brighter overhead, then we have the KM 184s, which really work well, or the Octavas, which is kind of like a balance between the two.
Right,
So,
right, right.
which is why it's a difficult answer to give you about the one mic that I couldn't live without, because there are lots of mics which I wouldn't be able to live without, because at the end of the day, when you have a space like that, getting the sound right starts first
Yeah,
from the instrument,
yeah,
and the next is the mic.
absolutely.
So obviously the instrument is the most important thing, and then it's the microphone that's picking it up. And if you can use a ribbon mic because you want a slightly duller overhead sound, then why not?
Yeah,
If because the way, I mean, the amount of EQ or even the way you EQ will be so different
yep,
when
absolutely.
you're using it. I mean, like they say, like, like certain mics EQ much better than other mics in certain frequency ranges, etc., etc. So that's the whole concept of it.
Yeah, and
So
ribbons
yeah,
typically
so
take EQ very well also. Like, especially
exactly,
good ribbons.
exactly,
Like, yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
So
Oh
yeah,
man.
so that's my take on it.
Interesting.
Coles,
Okay. Coles
yeah,
4038. That's, I mean,
38,
but
yeah.
that's, I don't
It's
think I've ever used a Coles. I have a Rode NTR, which is
okay.
that uh,
Ribbon.
active
Is it
ribbon.
a ribbon?
Yeah,
Oh,
it's a
okay.
ribbon. And
Okay, nice.
it's actually a very pretty looking mic also.
Okay.
So it looks like, it comes out of a champagne bottle case and like it's,
Let me look it up
yeah,
right
check it out. It's a
now.
really good looking mic. And
Uh,
I got one like on sale because like I've always heard
oh.
about ribbons, and I was like, I've never really used ribbon before, but I want to try it out.
It's like an RCA mic inside
Yeah.
another.
It's got the ribbon
Oh,
element inside like that, and I
yeah.
got one, and I ended up using it pretty much on everything. And since it's active, you don't need like a cloud lifter or like
Correct.
a
Correct.
really
Correct.
hot preamp to like run it through.
Correct.
So and you
Correct.
get that warm sort of like
Nice.
high frequency roll off that ribbons are known for without pushing it like insane.
Correct.
And now I wanted another
Correct.
one so I can like do overheads and stuff,
Fair.
because right now I just have
Yeah.
one ribbon.
Yeah.
But yeah, the ribbons are always fun to
They're
use.
they're just, yeah. I mean, so like we have a pair of M160s, which have been coming
Yeah,
very handy for the live stream because they're really good because I mean,
because the
bleed,
rejection
man.
also, right?
Exactly.
Yeah,
So they're
yeah,
hypercardioid ribbons. So whatever bleed it does pick up sounds good.
yeah,
Like you don't get
yeah. The
cymbally
coloration of
nonsense.
the
Yeah.
off axis is actually really nice.
Exactly. So
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
and like doing this for so long, I never realized I had these M160s lying around for like God knows how long,
Mm.
and I would have like for all the made in Indias now, I'm going to just like
Use
definitely
those.
use those as like vocal mics
Oh, those are great
because
on guitar cabs
yeah,
also, right? I
they
mean,
are amazing on guitar
very
cabs.
nice. So for live sessions, like, because I think the one thing that I've seen, at least from, I mean, for what we do here at Compass Box and what I've seen in Island City, is that people do live sessions. I remember I saw the, what is that one with AC, and
Oh
Aaron?
yeah, beer puppets,
Beer Puppets. That's what, yeah.
beer puppets. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
They had done a live session at Island City, I
Island
believe.
City. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And oh, it sounded so good. It sounded so good. And
Good musicians.
oh, I mean, phenomenal musicians. So
Yeah.
I guess before, in that signal chain that we were thinking of, before the instrument,
Yeah,
it's the
that's what.
musician, right? So
Exactly. Yeah, yeah,
when you've got
yeah,
that sorted out, you really can put anything in
yeah,
front of it and it'll sound great.
yeah, yeah.
But I remember listening to their session and I was just like, oh, this sounds so good. And that's one of the big challenges of for studios to produce really good sounding live sessions in the first place, right? And was that a consideration you had when you were building the room and the live room specifically, that you wanted to be able to accommodate 5 to 6 people comfortably and have a really good live session
Yeah,
sound?
yeah, of course. I mean, that was it's difficult because when you're trying to do multi-purpose stuff in anything in life, not just with like music, there's always going to be a compromise on some front.
Yeah.
Like so they did say, I mean, and now that I do it a lot more, I do think, okay, fine, for a live session, if the room was slightly deader, it would have
Yeah.
uh, benefited a little bit more. But then from other perspectives, like a string recording, or when we record the piano solo, or when we do just drums and you want a big drum sound, then it's nice for the player and for the room to have some part in the
Yeah.
sound itself. The size of the room was important because I wanted to be able to do like give the option to the band to be able to record everything live and do everything live, or even do live sessions like we're
Yeah.
saying. And so yes, that was definitely a plan in mind at the beginning, and I think for the most part, we've managed pretty well to manage bleed internally between things. It's only, and it's not it's physics. It's difficult to defy that,
Yeah.
is that, I mean, some the loudest instrument in the room, which ends up being the drums
Yeah.
always, and then the loudest
Absolutely.
microphone that you need to have in the mix, which is the vocal mic,
Yeah.
are the two guys that you end up fighting with the most. I did design the room. I mean, I didn't design the room. Sorry, Didier designed the room with. Yes, I designed. Designed the room with.
Multi-talented, multi-instrumentalist, and a designer.
And yes. Also faker. Anyway, so yeah. So basically, So the conversation was, yes, design the room with the ability to do like a live performance, and also that's why I did put the vocal booth in there.
No, true, true. I mean, I think
Yeah.
that relationship, especially between drums and vocals, is something that we've had a lot of experimenting with our live sessions, because um, uh, the I don't know if you've seen the live sessions which have like a full band that we've done.
Yeah.
Typically, we really have to experiment with where we put singers and what kind of mics we use as well. Aventone CV12 tube mic,
Yeah.
and then like a Blueberry as like our main vocal mics.
Hmm.
And we ended up like there's so much, like that mic sounds like
Yeah.
a room mic for the drums,
Exactly.
eventually. So,
Exactly.
and I've been debating whether or not to get a ISO shield for the drums, like in terms of how much would it really reduce it by, and it does help, you're saying.
I am telling you, it does. It definitely. I mean, it's still a little bit of a task, but without it, it would be impossible. Like any of these gigs we're doing, because we are going absolutely live.
Yeah,
So for us, there's no even chance of like
you can't
post
do
or
post to
being
anything.
able to.
Yeah,
You can't
yeah,
do anything. I mean, I can't have RX. I mean, I can because like the musicians aren't hearing RX, but I still can't have RX running live
yeah,
while the
yeah,
gig
yeah.
is going live.
No.
That's a little too heavy. So this was the best solution for debleed, and it really does make a difference. I mean, like sometimes, like even when like talking to each other from like, it's still drums are way louder than conversation, so there's no comparison. But
Yeah.
like just a simple thing is that when one person's on one side of the shield and another person's on the other side of the shield, you have to speak up to be able to converse. Does do a good job,
So just that
especially.
brunt of that SPL is sort of reduced by that
Exactly,
physical
exactly.
thing over there. Right, right,
Yeah,
right.
and even the top end harshness of the cymbals get cut off.
If you were to go back and redo your first project that you ever did,
Ooh.
what would you change, and
Mhm.
what ended up sort of working well, even though it was like your first time either producing or engineering, playing drums? What is something that you would look back and be like, I could have done that differently now?
So I'll quickly. So there are these two girls, from twin sisters from Indian girls from Pittsburgh. Sorry, from somewhere Pennsylvania. I mean, they were studying in university. Really good. So like Tejas and I kind of co-produced it in a sense. It's a very simple song, and every time I go back and listen to it, I'm like, I quite liked everything, every production choice that was made on it, because it wasn't overthinking it too much. It was simple. The girls had a great vocal performance in general, um, and it was a very well written song. Very simple, though it was their debut. It was, I mean, they knew what they were doing. Um, and so it was easy to basically write around it. So if you had to ask me what I would have done differently, and even the drums, surprisingly, I like just gone on the kit, did one take through and through, did one more take, and then chose the first one eventually,
Right.
and
Yeah.
it really sat well. And the one biggest thing I would have done differently in that was not played my crash cymbal so loud. As a drummer, it's like, okay, on the one. But as an engineer and as a producer, then when I wanted that chorus
Yeah.
to hit smoothly, I was like tearing my hair out. I tried everything, like, but I wish my internal dynamics on that perspective was better. And secondly, also, the song was so good, and felt like between me and Tejas, I think we had done the right amount of production. If I knew more about mix, and if I knew more, and if they had just got it mastered, I guess, instead of using the master that I did
Right.
eventually,
Right.
also, I feel like, it would have turned out really really well. And I wish I had the foresight at that point in time to push them towards getting mastered, because you have to hear some of the stuff they've done now. I mean, it's incredible. They recorded it in Nashville. They've done like
Oh,
an
nice.
EP,
Oh,
and
very
I
cool.
mean, like country recording in Nashville with producers there. I mean, it's like what the engineer's problem is going to be,
Yeah.
what the producer's problem is going to be. So I'm not. It's not like you have to go out there and become an engineer and become a producer. But
But the
if you
skills
want to
have
be a
made you
good,
a better session
yeah,
drummer.
yeah, exactly. That skill has made me a better session drummer, or being a drummer has made me a better producer in a sense. Being a bass player, drummer, multi instrumentalist made me a better producer, because like I'm able to put most of my thoughts down myself, and so I don't have to filter it through somebody else. Or
Right.
like even like when it comes to like being a better producer, because I do know the basics of engineering and understand all of that kind of stuff. Compression, EQ, I can tone shape, I can set things up myself. And even if I have to hand it to another engineer for a mix, I can communicate with him on a level that he understands. And so
That's
when I
right.
hand him something, it's just the communication is much easier basically.
And it's becoming
So
more important for that skill especially for independent like singer songwriters to now learn a little bit
Exactly.
more about engineering, learn a little bit more about mixing. It's
Exactly.
because people are doing it independently now. They don't have a
Yeah.
producer's guidance to help them with that
Exactly.
conversation with the engineer, or they don't have the producer's guidance to be able to record those stuff at home. So those skills are
Exactly.
becoming more and more sort of important
Yeah.
for the independent musician to like achieve, right?
Absolutely. And with technology changing, it's impart. So the thing is, back in the day, technology was the biggest barrier, right?
Yeah.
Like you could not physically do it unless you had pots of money and you had a big studio.
Yep.
Now, you can get into it from a ground level at least, and understand the fundamentals. I mean, everybody has a laptop. Almost everybody has a laptop, I would assume,
Yeah. Music
in
makers at
the
least,
in the
yeah.
world, music makers, exactly. And so, just you can fire up any DAW. Doesn't have to be like a professional one, but the basic tools are there, at your fingertips. So I think it's a good thing
True,
to
true.
explore.
And for people who may want to consider building a studio or starting a studio themselves, what are the learnings, that the top three learnings that you would impart onto them? And actually, so I would like to premise that question first also with asking you, who were the individuals in your life that sort of mentored you and sort of helped you bridge the gap between what you knew and what you needed to know also? So like, so there are two questions over there actually.
Cool. So, I mean, there are a lot of people who I didn't go to any like formal, especially when it comes to studio stuff. I didn't go through any formal education. I was sick for 2 months, stuck at home. I taught myself a few things. I watched a DVD, Alan Parsons DVD, which
Yeah.
helped me get the fundamentals right, and then YouTube, and it's just been a non-stop learning experience since then. People in my life who have really influenced me in terms of just a lot of like teachings and learned stuff from them have been people who I've worked with.
Yeah.
So I mean, starting all the way from the beginning. I mean, uh, when we would record, when we'd sit in the studio at when we record our first album at Yash Raj, I learned a few things from Shantanu. Uh, but at that point in time, I didn't really understand them, but I got a vibe of how things worked in that world. And that was like kind of like my introduction. Even going before that, actually, at Blue Frog Studios, when we started trying to record our album in the beginning, I
Right.
learned a few things there from engineers. Like there was an engineer there called Chinmay, and then there was another engineer who I still work with, Jovian, Tanmay Bhattacharjee, and who was also the guitar player with something relevant, and also Rohan Ramanna, who I work with Salvage Audio till this day very much.
Right.
And so a lot of so I've learned a lot of like detailed stuff from Rohan, because he enjoys like imparting knowledge like that and explaining stuff. In fact, I've noticed that with all the engineers who I've learned stuff from, they've been always very enthusiastic to impart knowledge from that
Right.
perspective.
Right.
And another big one from that perspective is Warren. I mean, I spent a lot of time with him. Warren would make it a point during any, like, even if he's like in the heat of things, he'd love to like talk about his little tips and tricks and how he's getting things going, and to other music, listening and trying desperately hard to get that fucking snare to crack like it would, or that vocal to be as crispy clean as it would,
Yep.
and
The
watching like
perpetual pursuit
endless.
of tone. Yeah.
Exactly. Like that fairy tale drum sound, which I've been like a lot of people have been talking about that of late. Like even like jazz music nowadays sometimes has that fairy tale drum sound that
Yeah.
that is standard. So anyway, so yeah, so that's my mentors.
Yeah.
What
So
were the three
if
things?
what would you sort of consider as the top three tips for somebody who wants to start a studio?
I think I said this before. Don't start it.
Yeah,
It's
I
way
think
too much work.
we can totally agree on that for sure.
Yeah, it's, I mean, no, but start the studio, start a studio. It's just know what you want from the very beginning. That's very, very important, because it's almost like you have one shot at it, because then after that to make changes is very difficult.
Yeah.
Because there's, especially with a studio like this, if you're going all in, you have like multiple layers. Like we have like 3 rooms built within a room. So if something's gone wrong on the first layer, then you don't even know what's going on in there, you know. So, or if you want to make a change, more importantly, then it's like destroying a lot of work that's already done. So know what you want. Make sure you're clear of the purpose of the studio, whether it's like just for you, whether it's going to be a commercial facility where other clients come in and use it, whether it's going to be other clients with your staff, or whether it's going to be only your staff managing it, you know,
Right.
because all of those decisions make a difference to the kind of equipment you buy, who it's for, whether it's for like a more like advertising stuff, whether it's for more like music related stuff, whether it's for like film and surround and atmos mixing. So all these questions are and more are questions you need to answer before you build it. So know what you want to do before you start. Okay, so that's one point. Then the other point is like, uh, if you're going to start a studio, make sure that that you're pretty clear about what is going on, because it's easy for things to just get out of hand in terms, I mean with then that's with any business. I mean, you know, nobody's going to care about it as much as you do. But if it's a commercial facility, even remotely commercial, where like other people are coming out from outside, you know, you got to keep like reinventing yourself to some extent, pushing the boundaries. We're setting up for atmos in jan. There's always you I mean, I hate to say it, and that's why I said don't start it in the beginning, because it's a
Yeah.
lot of hard work.
It's a lot of
You have
hard
to
work.
keep pushing, like you
Yeah.
guys are doing, like, you know, constantly doing sessions, like, although maybe like the live sessions don't like get the kind of income that you're imagining, but
Yep.
that will trickle into other things. That's a brand building exercise that you're
Absolutely.
doing.
Yeah.
So you can't, I mean, so it's the buck doesn't stop at the fact that okay, the session was done, but there was no return on it. For example, like, I would not have heard of you guys if I did not watch
Yeah.
almost all the sessions on your YouTube
Right.
channel,
Right.
you know.
Right.
Oh, yeah, make sure you get the right people to do the right job.
Yeah. I
Like,
100% agree.
don't think that oh, you know what, I know how to design a studio, so I'll do it
Yeah.
myself. Or
Yeah.
you know, or I know how to like execute the design. I mean, you know, I'll just source the materials myself. Or you know, I know about like, oh yeah, you know what, I know about routing and like cabling and stuff like that, so why the hell should I get somebody who
Yeah.
can
Yeah.
advise
Yeah.
me a better route, you know? Like, make sure you get the right people for that. Make sure you get the right people uh, to tune the room if you have to, the right staff. When somebody who knows how to execute the job has done it, and the professional has done that, and this again is just a general thing, it's not just related to studios also, is that when you get somebody with that kind of expertise, the right kind of expertise to execute a job, you'll always see that difference in outcome,
Yep.
you know. So if you're thinking of starting a studio, if you're thinking of doing a DIY setup, know that it's going to always be DIY.
Yeah.
Take
Absolutely.
that conscious decision. But if it's not a DIY setup, if you want it to be, and then see, so all these things are tied to each other.
No,
So those are
true.
the 3 tips I'd give studio
I think that's an
builders.
important distinction also, because like despite how much ever YouTube videos you watch, you can't be a master of acoustic treatment and of like,
Yeah,
uh,
yeah,
room acoustics and batch baying and cabling and
yeah, yeah,
routing and electric gear and instruments to buy
yeah,
and all. It's not possible. So you have to be able to
yeah,
get that
yeah.
expertise when it's needed, essentially. Last question.
Sure.
What is the next up and coming project that you're like sort of most excited about and working on, and give us a little sneak peek into
S-
what's happening at Island
So
City?
So I'll quickly give you 2 things. What is happening just now at Island City is these gigs going live from
Yeah.
Island City, from the island. So that's been fun. It's been fun to do like gigs at the studio also. It's a little bit different from what we've done before, and this live streaming was something that I had kind of wanted to do 3 years ago. Like
Yeah.
when I set up the studio, I mean, even 3 years ago, like like doing live sessions, kind of what you guys are doing at the studio, was
Yeah.
something that people are doing regularly. So I thought, okay, what is the one step further from that also that would be there? And I was like, yes, okay, let's do live streaming stuff,
Yeah.
you know. And so I set up the room for that, but never got down to it. And then this lockdown hit, and it became a necessity. And I think a lot of things are born out of necessity sometimes. Also, because we never had time to really do this kind of stuff before.
True.
So I didn't have time. So so I did a good amount of research for 3 months in trying to figure out how to do it properly. I feel like I've become more of a video person in the last 3 months than
Because of
like an
everything
audio
that's-
person.
yeah, yeah.
Everybody at the studio is like, hi, he's part of the video team now.
Part of the video.
Like, yeah.
That's such a weird diss.
Yeah. Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Why? Anyway, so cool. So that's what's going on now, and what I am looking forward to, like I said, is that we are setting up for Atmos next year. We've got a big project coming up, so I work with a collective of I work with a collective of composers called Salvage Audio Collective. We just won the Asian Film Award.
That's right.
We-
Congratulations again for that.
Thank you. Yeah.
For Gully Boy, right?
Yeah, for Gully Boy.
Yeah, yeah.
Parasite was nominated also.
Yeah.
So to
Man,
like,
that's
like
insane.
to-
That's
yeah,
insane.
that-
like have that
I-
as the competition and be like, we
Yeah.
won.
And suddenly I was like passed out of the studio one afternoon, and I wake up to a message saying, "You guys won," and I was like, "What the?" Anyway, so yeah, so that was so basically, so the project that we're looking forward to next year is, I can't talk much about it except for the fact that it's a really great series for Netflix.
Okay.
Atmos music with Dolby, because I do believe that it's possibly the next transition, like when we went from mono to stereo, was
Now getting
was
surround.
one big
Yeah.
The thing is that the problem always that was there with like 5.1 or 7.1 was, it was very difficult to make the translation happen because you had to mix for 5.1 or you had
Yeah.
to mix for 7.1. Whereas with Atmos now, also because the digital world is there, and because like most phones are like losing like the headphone jack, etc., like you're beaming from your phone to your AirPods digitally also. So what happens with Atmos is that the decoding, sorry, you're gonna have a lot of trouble with this, huh? I've been like back and forth. Anyway, make you work for it.
Oh, yeah. I'll have a distressor somewhere for that. Yeah.
Pull it up. The interesting thing about Atmos is that the decoding happens on the consumer end. So technically the file is always the same. So as an engineer also, you're doing one mix.
Yeah.
And then depending on the device you're listening to it on, it decodes it.
Mm-hmm.
So the duller things would sit back in the mix, reverb would... So you could mix with depth like that. But now you can actually just
Yeah.
move an
With
object
spatial
around.
depth now, you've got like
Exactly. With proper spatial depth, you can move it around. And I've heard like the way the Atmos mix translates to like a stereo also is very, very nice.
All right, JJ, thank you so much, man.
You're welcome.
This
You're
is always, I mean, I think every time, like even the last time we spoke, it ended up being like a geek talk anyways, because
Yeah,
that'll naturally
yeah,
happen, I think.
Correct.
So hopefully we'll
Yeah, I
have
forgot
another
to
podcast.
ask, Who
What?
is this for? Did I ramble on in the wrong direction? Should I have kept
No.
it lighter
It was
and been
perfect.
like-
It was perfect.
Okay,
We'll have
cool.
another podcast which is just for like, hey, breaking into the indie scene, perhaps. If that's something
Ah.
that people want to hear, then
Sure.
I think that would be pretty
I'm up
cool.
to talk.
That would be
I'm up
awesome.
to talk.
Yeah. All right. Thanks again, JJ.
All right.
And keep it up. I want you to come down to Compass Box for a live session for sure.
Yes, I do want to also. And
I've
I
come
would
to
love
Island
so.
City for a live session. Now you have to come down to Compass Box for a live session.
I will.
I think.
And I have a couple of really good friends in Ahmedabad. So I will definitely make my way down there. Thank you so much for having me
Absolutely,
on.
man. Thank you so much for taking time off to do this. And hopefully we'll do another podcast soon.